Hey everyone, welcome. And I'm thrilled that you're able to join us for this LinkedIn Live session describing a passion project of mine, something that I've wanted to do for a long time, which is introduce the tools and frameworks that have to do with managing effectively in high uncertainty situations to a broader audience in a format that can scale. And so briefly, the concept is that we have 6 online courses, which are supplemented with one-on-one sessions with me. So you take them over the course of 8 weeks between the middle of September and the middle of November. And we also have this cohort connection so that you're meeting other people who are peers like you. So let's bring on our recent graduates, and they can tell you a little bit about themselves and their experiences with the course. So first we have Marla, who is from Corning. We have Juan Carlos, who's from a big tech company, and I'll let you decide if you want to tell them. And Sita Paya, who is an entrepreneur, an advisor to entrepreneurs, and has been kicking around the world of uncertain environments for a very long time. So I think maybe Marla, let's start with you and a little bit about who you are, what you do, and perhaps some things that you took away from the course.
Yeah, thank you, Rita, and happy to be here to share this experience with everyone. I've been with Corning 21 years now, but over 35 years total industry experience, and that's been across the entire innovation life cycle. I also mentor university programs here for startup projects and competitions. So active at work, outside of work. Loved the platform, loved the experience. And if I had to share maybe one key takeaway for me, since I coach now also across the entire innovation lifecycle, taking people who have that late stage startup scale up mentality, the difference between preventable failures and intelligent failures, right? As you move earlier in innovation, you want to design learning plans to fail fast, fail early. And that was a great concept to actually be concrete and take to programs, again, especially for students who are, expecting to get their term paper correct. It's like, well, maybe you want to learn, maybe you want to stumble, maybe you want to fall a little bit along the way, and you'll end up in a better spot. So
yeah,
that's a great one.
Oh, thanks, Marla. I love that. And one of the courses is actually dedicated to this question of learning from failure. And, failure's gotten this mystique about it now, right? Everybody's running around talking about, oh, excellent failure. But there really is such a thing as a silly failure, an unnecessary failure versus a thing that didn't work out the way you expected, but which teaches you something. And I think that's a big theme that we have throughout the course.
Right.
So maybe Juan Carlos, how about you next?
Absolutely. Thank you. It's an honor to be here with you, Rita, and with my peers and colleagues. My name is Juan Carlos Reyes. I'm based in San Diego, California. I work for Qualcomm Technologies in a business development sales director capacity for one of our business units in North America. I also serve in a strategic development team in a global scope. I've been in the industry in general a little bit over 30 years. I started in the family business in industrial distribution, which that business continues. But then I venture into sales in the high tech. So I've been in the semiconductor electronic components industry for a little bit over 20 years, and I'm here. I'm passionate about business development, business growth, strategic planning, and all sorts of frameworks and tools, to trigger activity and generate revenue. That's what I'm passionate about. So thank you for inviting me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Do you have any examples of something that you can talk about that you've used out of the course?
Absolutely. Want me to jump in?
Sure.
Absolutely. So, I came across Rita's work 3 years ago. I'm a proud alumni from other program that she has at Columbia Business School, and the titles of driving growth in certain times, that was pre-COVID. It couldn't be more relevant now, right? It's right there. But one of the main takeaways for me was the discovery-driven planning, and just as a concept itself, right? The idea of planning for learning instead of just planning for validating someone else's assumption, right? And that's very common, and unfortunately to say that is very common right now in most of businesses that I have worked in the past and currently. And it takes some time um, for the concept to sink in within your colleagues and your managers, right? Because most of the activities, specifically in strategic planning, are done, to validate something from a strat plan. So it takes time. But one of the specific ways I started using in my business development role, which started with creating initiatives to grow revenue in adjacent markets, right? Everybody has their core, at least in tech, we have our core, but now we needed to grow beyond our core. And there's a lot of uncertainties, right? We have products, but we don't know if they're going to use them. And we have customers with needs, but we don't know if our products align. So the discovery driven planning was perfect because it removed that pressure of we need to validate this, right? So we created with our group different stakeholders, product team, logistics, R&D, and we start creating almost like concepts or metrics, right? What do we need to test or to validate for this assumption to be true, right? So we, in general, we created the checkpoints. We were trying to identify, drive-in trends for a specific product in a specific new market. Um, so we paint. I was able to paint a picture of the final outcome and then walk back to a specific checkpoint. It's important to create the checkpoints not too long from a time perspective, like in a 1 week or even 3 weeks, and do it in a most efficient, cheapest, quickest way, right? Because you just want to test one thing and then decide how to move forward. Um, I started this 2 years ago. Now it's been instituted as a as a process which I own. Some other colleagues are coming to me to borrow that process, um, and it's perfect. Basically, the outcome of this is identifying. We're assessing the market, we're sizing the market, but through the discovery phase, we're uncover a lot of new areas, applications that our products can fulfill needs, uh, and and everybody's really excited. So
Right.
discovery during planning. That's
Discovery driven planning. And so we've heard from two kind of corporate innovators. And Sid, you're sort of at the other end of the spectrum doing more of the startup and entrepreneurial things.
I'm both. So I work with TerraCycle in corporate innovation, but I have a background with Nestle, Kraft, and Smucker, so CPG background, which is fairly sophisticated in terms of launching new products. But and I used to be a general manager back in the day with CPG. But I decided to look at why was the failure rate so high within CPG, and I got really into the startup world. Specifically, I worked at a venture studio, so we used to build early stage startups literally from the get go. So one of the things I specialized in was doing jobs to be done, interviews and research. But one of my things, from the corporate world, looking out to the startup world, you always thought that all these startups were doing so well and so successful because they didn't have to go through red tape and so on and so forth. But that's not necessarily the issue. A lot of startups fail, and you just don't hear about it. In my estimate, about 95% of early stage startups fail. You just don't hear about them. And I would say in sort of like new product launches, the failure rate's about 85%. So I got it into myself to try and figure out sort of like an end-to-end way that would help people sort of work. And so I've been in this discovery process, if you will. I'm very familiar with your work, Rita. I mean, I read Transient Advantage when I was recovering from the flu. So I'm a little bit of a geek that way. But I was looking for a good program. And I think what I loved about this Valize program was the way it integrated everything together. It brought the latest thinking. So I was very familiar with all the with the latest thinking, but it integrated it really nicely in terms of step by step. Here's your checkpoints, and this is what you need to do, because it's not out there, and that's the beauty of it. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. So let me just spend a minute on the concept and the design behind the course. So it's 6 mini courses in all. The first one is a deep dive into discovery-driven planning. And discovery-driven planning is a concept, as Juan pointed out, which says, look, when you're doing something that's really new, that's very uncertain, you want to be thinking about what can I learn at the lowest possible cost in the quickest amount of time, rather than planning some grand plan, which is just a quantification of plans. So we really start off with a grounding here. And what you see here is the website for the courses. This is right on our Valize landing page, which you can scroll to after this session if you're interested. So there's 6 courses overall, beginning with discovery-driven planning. We then get into how do you do customer interviews, and the all-important question of, so you decided to do a survey. How do you make sure it's not a stupid one, right? Then we look at things like building prototypes. How do you think about your ecosystem and designing the ecosystem of partners that you need? Talk about learning things, how do you revise a prototype? How do you learn what to do better? And we look at customer segmentation and how you can think about your customer's total experience in a really great way. And of course, how to build products. So these are all the new courses. Each course has about 5 to 6 lessons, which have videos, which have downloads, which have lots of materials. And I think we can share with you maybe just a sample of what one of the videos looks like.
So a really useful toolkit in your checkpoint design process is what designers do. They create prototypes. So a prototype is sort of a version of the ultimate thing that you want to build, but it's not the actual thing. And the idea is you want to make a lot of them, you want them to be super cheap, and you want to be really quick in terms of how fast you get input from them. If you can draw a stick figure, you can prototype. And the goal of prototyping is really to begin to get some market feedback of some kind from actual customers. And the way that people prototype is really interesting. And so as you'll learn in the module, Nike got its first start when they made a prototype of a shoe, and that became the ultimate weapon. Zappos began with their founder actually buying shoes from a store and sending them through the mail to see if people would buy shoes on the internet. Netflix very famously started with a prototype of somebody sending a CD to somebody else to see if it was feasible. So even very big businesses have started with prototypes as a way of validating certain questions that people have about the market.
So that's an example of the kind of videos. I think the longest one we have in the whole program is about 11 minutes. Most of them are in the kind of 3 to 5 minute stage. And each lesson comes with downloads, formats you can use, templates that you can use. And I know, Marla, you were saying that the videos are so smooth, you just kind of rolled through them without knowing that the rest of it was all there. But it's all there that you can download. So some of my favorite tools that we talk about in the course are indeed how to intelligently design a survey. We have something that we borrowed from Alberto Savoia called the Skin in the Game Caliper, which is kind of a game, right? You get points for actual customer validation. So instead of making up in your mind what you think customers are going to buy, we actually look for evidence and for proof. So those are some of the skills that we learn while we're in the program. And then as part of the additional interaction that we have in the program, we have sessions just like this, where I come on without a particular agenda, and people can ask questions, people can share experiences, cohort members can talk to each other. So you're really building kind of a peer network with one another. And I think that turned out to be pretty valuable, I think, right?
I would agree.
So the chance to ask other people questions like, well, so how does Corning think about this? Or, I got this 5-year product development cycle. How does Qualcomm deal with that, right? Or whatever it is. And I think it gives you that chance to really learn from each other as well as whatever the content is.
Yeah, I think that's really, really valuable, Rita. specifically because a lot of us were so deep into our business, especially for so many years, and we're talking the same language and the same topic. Sometimes it's so important to get feedback or some comments from someone else's, with a total different lens,
Mhm.
right? With a total different lens, and I think that's the level of professionalism from that is developed with our colleagues and peers through this learning together. It's exceptional, and it's highly valuable, to be honest with you.
So there's a question of how, or for the panel, right? How hard is it? So you come to the course, you take this experience, it's awesome, the skills, and then we got to go back to the parent company and try to make change happen. Have you had the opportunity to reflect on any of that?
Sure, I can talk about that. So I haven't introduced it, in like an end-to-end basis at TerraCycle, but in certain aspects, I looked at, sort of like looking at how do you look at when you're building a product or a venture, like a new business. Are you looking at it from the internal perspective, which most organizations tend to do, or do you look at it from an external perspective, and how do you go about doing that? And then sometimes, releasing specific actions that Rita's program has taught in different situations lends you credibility to say, hey, where did you learn that? And then you can introduce that slowly, step by step. Really depends on what the organization's needs are at that point of time. So that's what I've done. And just to build on that,
organizations are at different levels of maturity, for sure.
Correct. And just to build on that, there's a CEO friend of mine that I was talking to. He looks after about 5,000, 6,000 people. Like, it's a large organization. And I introduced him to Rita. But when we were chatting, he said, hey, listen, I'm growing, but my concern over the next 3 years is to hit my innovation targets. And we've got this so-called best-in-class organization, et cetera, but we still somehow don't do this. We can't do this. So he's looking for a capability build. And there's a lot of the thinking over here that is the latest thinking that works. It's not theory, it actually works. And so I was suggesting, try and do this, adapt it to your organization, make sure it's a transformation and a capability build as you go forward. So I know he's in touch with Rita, but different strokes for different folks is what I would say.
Yeah, and the vision for these courses was really that, I can teach 30, 35 people at Columbia at a time, right? But if you're really going to build capability in an organization with any complexity, you need to have something that'll scale. And so part of the vision for this whole program is, let's take some of these practices that we know work, turn them into, checklists and templates and questions you can ask yourself and conversation starters. And then people can join from wherever. We've had people from Australia and Malaysia and all kinds of places involved in the courses. And so it's a really practical way of building capability. And that's really what I'm all about. I've spent so much of my career talking, right? And then people would be all excited, and then they come back to their companies and they'd be like, what is it? Is it a spreadsheet? Is it a power? Like, how do I do this? And so this program is really part of the response to doing that. So the cohort program, which is the one that we're talking about right now, is where we have, a whole group of people going through it together. I should also mention, if you're the sort of person who just wants to try out one or two things and maybe take it at your own pace without the sort of pressure of every week there's something to do, we also offer the courses as standalone things that you can just take one at a time. We do also have a continuing education benefit, which is cool. So you get 2 of them if you take the whole course, and if you take 3 of our standalone ones, you get 1. So that, I think, is helpful. Any other comments on bringing the learning home to your organization?
I wanted to add, go ahead. I just wanted, is that okay? I wanted to just add to Sid's comments and in responding to Juan Miguel. I wouldn't say it's hard, but it takes time. Like any change, it takes time. So one of the learnings from my I'm at fault because I'm always have this idea, and I like to present the whole process from starting to finish. And I have hit the wall so many times because it's just too much, for our team and our management to swallow, right? So drawing from discovery driven planning, the concept is it's important to paint a picture of the final outcome. You need to visualize that and then break it down in small chunks and just pick the first one, small one that you can go ahead and test, right? And this is how you sell it to internally or to management. Let us just go ahead in the next 2 weeks, talk to those customers and test if our assumption of making this product is really doing what we're supposed to do, right? Or if the reason they buy it is the reason that we assume they were going to.
Mhm.
And you have to go step by step. But one important thing that Rita mentions that I also take as part of my process is, what do you do next? And then you have this framework called RAISE, right? And then you decide, very simple, that you tell your management, right? Once we pass that milestone, that checkpoint, then we're going to get together and then we decide in 4 dimensions, right? We either redirect, we either accelerate if it's the right thing, we hit the jackpot, right? Or we just continue, right? Let's do the next checkpoint, or then we exit, right? And Rita has a whole module that can talk a lot about how to disengage in some big projects, right?
And I think I would add, right, from, again, discovery-driven planning, we talk a lot about assumption management. And I like to talk about assumptions that are disguised as facts, right? So you're acting on a belief as if they're true instead of they need to be true. And so, again, the question from Juan Miguel about changing an organization, you can use assumption management on a product launch, on a technology launch, on something new that you're trying to take to the market. But you can ask those same questions about assumptions about your internal process. Right? So what assumptions do we have about our current process, and is it working or not? And how would we test that? How would we pilot something different to know if we could get an advantage there or not? So assumption management, in my opinion, can play to both sides, product and process.
That's great. Thank you. So one of the things about this course is it's actually part of a whole suite of things that we're trying to do over at Valize, which is to help you build capability at scale. We've also got sets of diagnostics and tools that you can use. And the other super cool thing, which I'm hoping to show you guys, is we've actually built software that we call Spark Hub, which creates a tool. It's an app, basically, that allows you to make discovery-driven planning work for real. So it allows you to map your portfolio. It allows you to figure out which uncertainties you're reducing and how much it's costing you to do that. It allows you to plan by checkpoints. So that's going to be one of the things coming up in the near term. And I'm hoping to use it in the classroom. And I'm also hoping that that'll be something that goes together with the checkpoint learning course, because that's so embedded in the whole theory behind what we're doing. So if you had a piece of advice to offer people who are considering taking the course, maybe just one short piece of advice, and then we'll wrap up.
Sure. I'll go first.
Oh, go ahead.
I have done a lot of online classes, programs, both as a participant and as a facilitator. Rita, what I loved about this program was exactly this, right? The chance to talk to you about our issues, our concerns, to meet with the cohort, right? Develop some new colleagues. You don't get that in a lot of university programs. You don't get that in a lot of MOOCs. And so that guided tour, not only through the best available information, but the conversations were fabulous. So thank you for the experience. Happy to help you promote it here today.
Oh, thank you. And make the time to come, because we schedule them. We try to schedule the live sessions. Typically they're at noon Eastern or at 8 p.m. Eastern, which gets most of the world, maybe not Australia, but pretty much everybody else.
I can go in next. So my thought is that this is ideal for general managers, entrepreneurs, people who are just starting up or thinking about an idea, as well as corporate innovation. So it cuts right across the board. I read a lot. In fact, I knew quite a few of the authors that Rita had brought into the program. But what it does is, even if you have a seed of an idea that you want to do in your company or your own business or working with a startup, you can literally follow this, and it's got the latest thinking that it integrates in a very easy to use sort of like format. So it's easy to read, so easy to listen to, like 3 minutes, 5-minute videos, and then you can actually do stuff. So it's practical, it's not theoretical, but it integrates everything beautifully, so you can get strategy as well as just starting a business without your biases thrown in.
Excellent, excellent. As I have always said, right? I mean, nothing to lose, high caliber content, thought by one of our best, Professor McGrath, and just the wealth of knowledge from our colleagues as a continue community is priceless.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead.
And we will, you guys were part of our very first cohort, so we're going to continue that conversation. We're experimenting right now with different channels, but, once you've joined, you become part of our community, and that's what we want to keep going, because we think that's where a lot of the learning and the lessons come from. So nuts and bolts, you can go to the Valize website, valize.com. There's a tab there for the fall cohort, which you can just sign up for right then and there. If you have trouble or want to do it some other way, maybe you want to do it as a company or as a group, just reach out to Jacora, that's Jacora at Valize.com, and she will help you get set up. She's our customer success lead, and this is one of her pet projects. So we're very happy to support her in doing that. So thank you all so much. I'm looking forward to staying in touch, and to be continued.